Thank you again for joining this morning. This is a webinar to review the latest 2025 sustainability guideline updates and go a little bit more in depth to the presentation that we provided yesterday. For some quick introductions, my name is Sunita Sarvaswaran. I'm the Director of Sustainability Programs. I will be joined later on in this webinar by the Solar Program Associate, Tim Godair. I have also included some additional contacts on this screen, Samantha Pierce, VP of Sustainability, as well as Dylan Culp, our Sustainability Program Associate, who are important contacts to keep in mind as you kind of digest this new updates and if you have any questions as we go through. We will be monitoring the chat. So for some quick housekeeping, all attendees are muted upon entry. We'll be monitoring both the Q&A and the chat, so please enter your questions. We have reserved about 15 minutes at the end for any questions. We will also be circulating an FAQ, collecting all the questions that we've received over yesterday's webinar as well as today's webinar, and we'll provide to all attendees as well. And again, this presentation is being recorded and will be shared at the end. All right, for a quick peek at our agenda this morning, we'll review again the timeline for the 2025 Design and Sustainability Guidelines update. We'll go into depth on some of the updates that we discussed during the webinar yesterday. First, our HCR resiliency checklists, and then our solar evaluation tool. We'll also be covering our new sustainability review meetings, which are in addition to the 4% and 9% TA sessions. And then lastly, we'll reserve some time for questions at the end. So if folks attended our webinar yesterday, this is a little familiar, but just to recap the applicability and timeline for the 2025 design and guidelines updates. The guidelines are applicable to our HTFC 9% LIHTC RFP, HFA 4% LIHTC, and standalone tax-exempt bond financing. The guidelines are also applicable to any multifamily properties receiving HCR subsidy financing, SLIC standalone financing, and based on term sheets, specific Office of Community Renewal programs as well. Please refer to the appropriate term sheet to determine whether or not the sustainability and design guidelines are applicable. The 2025 version of the guidelines are effective starting in the summer of 2025 for the 9% LIHTC RFP. That RFP will be announced over the summer, so the 2025 guidelines will apply. Any HFA projects closing in 2026, this includes any combination of financing and standalones, will also have to comply with the 2025 guidelines. And lastly, as mentioned before, please refer to the program term sheets for OCR programs to see if the 2025 sustainability and design guidelines are applicable for those specific programs. With that, we'll start to just dive in on the HCR resilience checklists. As we had mentioned yesterday, HCR has introduced, as part of the 2025 sustainability guidelines, new tools, one of which is our new HCR resilience checklists. The goals of these checklists are really to provide a streamlined assessment tool that uses very specific New York State data and focused on specific New York State climate risks. The intent of this is really to provide clear requirements to address resilience early on in design. And we hope that this will help prioritize sort of cost-effective solutions as both baseline and exposure requirements. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about what that means. The three climate risks that are addressed or assessed in the resilience checklists are flooding, extreme heat, and strong wind. And I'll sort of go into depth on each of those climate risks. Under the flooding climate risk, the HCR resilience checklists cover both coastal and stormwater flooding using FEMA firm as well as local flood maps. The exposure category that determines whether a property is exposed to that particular climate risk is based on the 100-year storm floodplain. And the stretch categories and goals are based on the 500-year storm floodplains. Projects that are pursuing federal flood risk management, FFRMS, are considered automatically compliant with all of the baseline and exposure requirements under the flooding climate risk. The second climate risk that the resilience checklists cover are extreme heat. So this uses both New York State and New York City heat vulnerability indexes. For a property to be considered exposed in New York State, meaning outside of New York City, it has to trigger a moderate to high or high heat vulnerability index. For New York City projects, an exposed project would be considered if it has a heat vulnerability index of 5 or greater. The last climate risk that's considered within our HCR resilience checklists is strong wind. This category considers both coastal and special wind regions. Exposed coastal regions are any locations within 1 mile of a coastline, and this includes both oceans and Great Lakes. And then for special wind regions, that's defined by ASCE 7 hazard tool. So we do have 2 specific checklists, one for new construction projects and one for existing buildings. Please use the definitions as per our sustainability guidelines to determine which resilience checklist to reference. And I'll go into detail on what are the specific requirements for both of those checklists. So under the new construction HCR resilience checklist, the checklists are required for all new construction projects. So we do require that the checklists are completed for each of those climate risks that we just discussed: flooding, extreme heat, and strong wind. New construction projects are then required to comply with all baseline requirements in each of those climate risk categories, regardless of whether the property is exposed to that particular climate risk. And then if there is an exposure identified based on those data sets that we just reviewed, you will have to also comply with the exposed requirements. We are also recommending that projects meet any of the stretch goals for those particular climate risks as well. There are 2 things I really want to highlight with this new construction checklist. Is that first, we recognize this is a new requirement and a new tool for project teams. So HCR Sustainability, in an effort to reduce administrative burden, will complete the resilience assessment and the checklist on behalf of project teams and present those requirements. And I'll speak about when that presentation will occur and how those requirements will be communicated to project teams in the later half of this webinar. The second thing to note is that for projects that are pursuing any certifications that require resilience assessment, like Enterprise Green Communities, you must still apply the findings from the HCR resilience checklist in addition to any requirements you have to meet for the certification. The second resilience checklist that we've developed is specific to existing buildings. Again, please reference our sustainability guidelines to determine which construction type you fall under. For the existing buildings resilience checklist, the requirements are slightly stepped down. So the resilience assessment is some level of resilience assessment is required for adaptive reuse and substantial rehab projects. We have just layered on the HCR resilience checklist as another option to be able to meet that requirement. So you are still allowed to use EGC or any other resilience assessment as you have been in the past for existing buildings. But this is our HCR resilience checklist for existing buildings is an additional resource that you can use to help meet that requirement. If you are using HCR resilience checklist for existing buildings, you will comply with any baseline requirements in each tab, again, regardless of exposure, and then comply with exposed requirements if a particular exposure is identified. And again, we encourage projects to consider those stretch goals in each of those climate risk categories. Once again, things to note, HCR Sustainability will complete the resilience checklist on behalf of project teams and present those recommendations. Again, it's encouraged that existing buildings apply the findings from our checklist into the project design, but is not required at this time specifically for existing buildings. With that, I will pass it over to Tim Goddard, who will go over our new solar evaluation tool.
Thanks, Sunitha. We're excited to be launching our new solar programming. We've had a lot of interest from developers, project teams trying to incorporate solar into their properties, and they've asked for help navigating and identifying all of the available and applicable solar incentives that they may be eligible for. So I'll be reviewing the easy-to-use tool for assessing a property's solar viability and the direct technical assistance we have available from pre-development through to construction. Next slide, please. So what do the updated guidelines say about solar? We have only two baseline requirements. Project teams complete the solar evaluation tool, and if a project is not pursuing solar, to incorporate solar-ready design, essentially to maximize continuous space on the roof. Our stretch sustainability goal is to have solar incorporated into the project design if our tool determines it is technically and financially feasible, which is if the payback period is less than 15 years and if the site can support a system larger than 4 kW. We have developed a technical requirements resource to help project teams ensure quality installation and workmanship. It also includes required equipment warranties. And this resource is posted on our webpage already. So I'll direct you to that document on the webpage. Next slide, please. So what actually is the Solar Evaluation Tool program, and what does it entail? As I've mentioned with this guidelines update, we are now requiring all projects complete the tool to really introduce developers and project teams to the concept and benefits of solar. But we are not requiring that project teams actually move forward with incorporating solar within their deals. We are just requiring that they do this feasibility analysis. The overall goal of this SET program is really just to educate developers and specifically provide direct technical assistance through our Cadmus colleagues. They are our technical assistance provider for this program for teams that are interested in solar. And again, this is just to provide a very early assessment of solar viability on projects. The tool itself, it is an Excel workbook. We are asking developers and project teams to put in very basic project information, address, roof size, financing structure, etc. And that would get submitted as part of their overall TA requests. Sunitha will talk through that process in a little bit more detail in a little bit. But the tool is designed to be very, very simple and easy for developers to fill out themselves. And then with our Cadmus colleagues, HCR Sustainability will complete the evaluation and determine that very early viability of solar for project teams. Next slide, please. So we do apologize. This is a bit small, but the same graphic is in our guidelines update. We just want to lay out what this development timeline looks like for the solar process. We really want the project team to go through the solar evaluation tool very early in the pre-development phase and go through the results with them during the TA so that they can incorporate everything into their application and into their financial model. Again, we are recommending solar, but we're not requiring solar at this time. So project teams are not required to incorporate solar into their deal if they choose to move forward. HCR Sustainability, again with our Cadmus colleagues, will help projects incorporate everything into the construction documents and into their underwriting model from the application phase through construction. And we'll also be monitoring through the construction phase that all of the solar work is completed as they submit it in their application. Next slide. As I've mentioned, we have our technical assistance provider. I believe some are on the call today, Cadmus. They are on board to provide direct technical assistance to developers and project teams, starting with the preliminary solar evaluation based on that project level information they submit with the tool. It'll be a heavy TA focus within the application and construction phase to make sure that developers feel supported with the entire solar process as they refine their solar scope and designs. And we can assist with selecting solar installers and incorporating everything into the construction documents. And last slide, I'll direct you to the solar programs webpage. That's through the HCR Sustainability webpage. It has a link to the SET workbook and a full webinar we hosted back in March with a more detailed tool review and a live demonstration of exactly what the project teams have to input and the results and recommendations that we will provide during the TA sessions. I'll also mention that we have a specific HCR solar email set up, and that's listed on the last slide of this deck. So please feel free to direct any solar related questions after this webinar to that email address. And also, I see here too, we have a lot of other helpful solar resources posted on the webpage, including the technical requirements I mentioned earlier too. And with that, I'll pass it back to Sunitha to review the sustainability review meeting process.
Great, thanks, Tim. All right, so I think the biggest update with our 2025 sustainability guidelines is a new process that we are introducing to really incorporate some of these updates with resilience and solar early into the pre-development process. So we have established a new sustainability-focused TA session called Sustainability Review Meetings. The intent of these meetings is really to support projects in pre-development, help projects consider some of these early design considerations like resilience and solar, and then pre-application, and then also help project teams consider solar funding opportunities during that pre-application phase as well. Two things to note here is for any projects that are subject to the 2025 sustainability guidelines, as we covered in the previous slide, the sustainability review meeting will be required. This does not replace your required 4% and 9% TA meetings. This is in addition to those meetings, and I'll go into depth on what that process looks like across the 4% and 9% pipelines. So to dive in a little bit on what this process looks like on the 9% side, this sustainability review meeting happens in parallel with your 9% TA. So project teams are expected to submit the completed solar evaluation tool with their technical assistance package following your normal 9% TA instructions. So please refer to our 9% technical assistance webpage for the full instructions where this is all outlined. HCR Sustainability will then schedule a dedicated sustainability review meeting with the project team within 7 to 10 days of that submission. During that time, sustainability will review all of the inputs within the solar evaluation tool, perform system design, and provide a financial analysis to be reviewed during the meeting. We will also complete the resilience checklist and go through that resilience assessment on behalf of project teams. During the sustainability review meeting, you can expect for us to review the results of the solar analysis, provide recommendations about whether solar is recommended, any solar tax credits or other funding opportunities that we would also recommend to be incorporated within your application should you move forward with solar. During the same meeting, we will also review the results of the resilience checklists, outline any baseline requirements that the project will have to meet, and as well as any exposure requirements if there are any climate risks that are triggered as part of that assessment. What we expect at the time of 9% application is that project teams submit the 9% application with a screenshot of the solar evaluation tool results tab that is provided by HCR Sustainability and our technical assistance providers, CATMUS, a preliminary solar design if the project elects to pursue solar as a stretch goal, and then finally, any of the resilience baseline requirements and exposure requirements incorporated. On the 4% side, it's a pretty similar process. We're just following a slightly different meeting structure, but the pre-application meeting is where the sustainability review meeting will occur. So for those who aren't familiar, our agency has implemented a new pre-application meeting that happens 6 months before the project is anticipated to close. So as part of that pre-application meeting, project teams will submit their completed solar evaluation tool with their pre-application package following all of the 4% instructions. So please check with your development director for full instructions on what must be submitted for the pre-application package and where that needs to be sent. HCR Sustainability will then schedule, again, a sustainability review meeting similar to the 9% process with the project team within 2 weeks of submission. During that time, we will be, again, reviewing this set inputs, refining the system design, and performing that financial analysis for solar. And we will also be completing the resilience checklist on behalf of your team. During the pre-application meeting, at which time you'll also be meeting with the 4% team and our technical units, we will be conducting the sustainability review meeting alongside that full meeting. And at that point, we will review the results of the solar analysis and provide a solar recommendation, and also review the results of the resilience checklist, go over any baseline requirements and any exposure requirements, if any. At the point of application submission, we expect that project teams incorporate, again, the screenshot of the set results tab that's provided by HCR Sustainability and Cadmus, the preliminary solar design if the project elects to pursue, and again, those resilience requirements incorporated. So the real difference with the 4% side is the sustainability review meeting happens at the same time as the pre-application meeting, and the same meeting will cover all of those requirements. On the 9% side, there is a dedicated separate sustainability review meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions on that as we go through.